Over the past 25 years, this country has experienced widening differences in the economic opportunities available to its citizens. For those in the bottom half of the population, these past 25 years have met stagnant or falling wages and income. As economic inequality widens, we've also seen widening gaps between the most advantaged and the least advantaged on educational achievement, in political participation, in access to medical care, and in other social domains. The problems of poverty and social disadvantage are not just problems for this particular election cycle. They're fundamental moral challenges to the United States as a nation that proclaims equal opportunity as one of the things that it does well. We have a number of very interesting discussions planned for this morning. We are going to stay on time, so we're going to move through the event. The bios of all the speakers are in your packet, so we're not going to give long introductions to anyone. I want to start by welcoming two individuals who are going to say a few additional words of welcome. First to speak will be Andrea Silbert, president of the EOS Foundation, which has been one of the key supporters of Spotlight on Poverty and Opportunity. She'll be followed by David Grusky, the director of the Stanford Center for the Study of Poverty and Opportunity. Andrea.
Thank you so much, Becky, and thank you all for coming. Good morning. I also want to thank our partners, Brookings and Stanford. I'm going to speak just a little bit about why Spotlight from a foundation perspective. the EOS Foundation, which is a private philanthropy in Massachusetts, working on both direct service and public policy issues. We jumped aboard the opportunity to be one of the founding sponsors of Spotlight because we thought it was so compelling for a number of reasons. First and foremost, Spotlight is a foundation-led initiative. Foundations spend $30 billion a year, much of it on poverty alleviation. Yet over the past 30 years, we haven't seen a significant decrease in poverty. As a foundation executive, if we see a hungry child, we find an organization that will feed him. If we see a parent without the skills to participate in the economy, we'll fund an organization to provide that training. Yet if we stop our work here at Direct Services, we're actually allowing a different dynamic to take place. We're allowing our government agencies, whether it's local, state, or federal, to disinvest in some of these services, which are basic human needs. So we need to be working all the way up the spectrum. Now, more and more foundations are focusing and funding public policy initiatives, but we have to take it one step further. We have to aggregate the power of our voices. Foundations assume a very high role and high visibility in our culture, in our society. We need to ask the next president to tell us whether poverty and opportunity are issues of importance to him or her. And if so, what he or she will do about it. Spotlight is a nonpartisan project with a very big tent. All ideas are welcome, and we seek to generate a very robust discussion that is solution-oriented, not ideological. Today, you're going to hear from experts across the political spectrum. Since we launched several months ago, we've been extremely pleased with the overwhelming response that Spotlight has received from candidates, from the media, and from the public. We believe that we're a part of a moment in history where the tide is turning back among the public, in the public will, to issues of poverty and opportunity, bringing them center stage. So Spotlight will continue to play a lead role in serving as a focal point for this very important conversation, both now, as we go up to the general election and after, holding candidates accountable for what they have said. Our mission is to continue to build the public will to eliminate poverty in our country. And like most movements, it's already beginning at the state and local levels. According to a soon-to-be-released poll by my good friend Jody Levin-Epstein of CLASP, 1 out of every 4 states has recently launched an initiative to raise the profile of poverty and opportunity through a commission, by setting a poverty target with a timeline, by establishing a new legislative caucus. Virtually all of this political attention has happened within the last 2 years. So we hope our next president will follow what's going on already on the ground in our states and in our communities. The media and thought leaders, many in this room today, play such an important role in this turning point in history. After you hear from our other co-host, David from Stanford, you're going to hear from Tom Friedman and John Bridgeland, who are also going to be talking about a study about where we have come since the last election cycle and this in the media to raise this issue. So thank you so much for coming. I hope that you'll continue to support this initiative. If you haven't signed up yet, please go to the website, spotlightonpoverty.org, and sign up and be a part of this great moment in history. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here and to join with the Spotlight on Poverty campaign and Brookings to co-sponsor this event. The Center for the Study of Poverty and Inequality at Stanford University is a new initiative, and it's described in glorious detail in our website at inequality.com. So hopefully you'll visit us there. Maybe not right now, but at some point in the future. The signature product of the center, the new magazine Pathways, is dedicated to the proposition that the amount of poverty and inequality is a product of decisions that we make, that politicians should be held accountable for their poverty and inequality policies, that having no poverty or inequality policy is a policy of default, and that we need to develop a nonpartisan advice industry that lays out in very clear terms what our poverty and inequality choices are, just like we have a well-developed advice industry on how to grow the economy. The first issue of Pathways addressed how a new war on poverty might be fought and featured contributions from Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Edwards, Rebecca Blank, and Charles Murray, and others. The next issue, and all of you are invited to subscribe for free at inequality.com. The next issue of Pathways will ask whether we can deliver economic stimulus in this time of impending economic downturn, whether we can deliver economic stimulus and at the same time fight poverty and inequality. Is there or is there not a perverse trade-off between these two very important objectives? So you might ask, what makes this the right time for Pathways, for the Spotlight on Poverty campaign, for this event? And the answer, I think, is a straightforward one. We live in a historic moment, a period of time in which inequality is increasing in a spectacular way, in an unprecedented way. In effect, we live in a new Gilded Age. In the last Gilded Age, in the last period of extraordinary expansion in inequality, enlightened capitalists and politicians appreciated the threat, and ultimately, quite fundamental institutional reform was undertaken. We have an opportunity, and indeed, I think some would say an obligation, to appreciate that yet another historic moment is upon us, and that we should step back, appreciate this moment for what it is, and approach it from a problem-solving centrist stance. And that's what this event is all about. So why is poverty a centrist issue? It's a centrist issue, I think, for the same reason that building a strong economy is a centrist issue. The costs of poverty in terms of lost downstream productivity, in terms of heavy collateral damage, such as record-breaking incarceration rates, those costs are massive. And the implication is that we ought to be interested in fighting poverty as a way of growing the GDP, and moreover, as a way of making it possible to spend less of that GDP on all the problems that poverty engenders. It's often argued that it would just be too expensive to fight another war on poverty. But in fact, there's growing evidence that it would be too expensive not to fight that war. While poverty is obviously a terrible thing for the poor, it's bad also for the non-poor, and hence all of us, the poor and non-poor alike, should see an interest in taking on poverty as a GDP growing investment and as ultimately as a tax reducing investment. Not just as a moral commitment to be sure, but not just as a moral commitment, but as a commitment to the economy. So it's all about, I think, building an economy that properly exploits our human capital, that doesn't generate loads of collateral damage, and that in the end positions us to compete effectively with other countries that for the most part aren't paying the same very high poverty tax that we're paying.